supporters of Dave's Tacklebox.
And good evening, welcome to Dave's Tacklebox. It's Sunday the 6th of April 2014, and as I was just discussing with Dave, it's the end of the tax year.
Bah.
Yeah, did I mention that? On tonight's show, we're going to be looking at some more e-cigs stories that have made the news this week. But before we do anything else, we start, as normal, with the titles. And away we go. Good evening, Dave.
Good evening, Dave. How are you diddling, cock? All right.
I'm all right, mate. How's yourself?
Well, walking about and breathing, as one does when one can, if one can.
You've been busy this week, haven't you?
Yeah, just a bit. My right foot doesn't know what its job's for other than standing on an accelerator pedal or leaning against a bar.
You went to Scotland, didn't you?
I did.
And you made it out alive?
We did. We were considering even going to Auburn. It's closer than you think.
Explain this joke. I heard that joke on Thursday on your show.
Yes. On the way up there are roads. You know the gantry things they have over the top of the road when you're driving. Have you fastened your seatbelt? No. It's the law. Don't care. All sorts of stuff like that. And then there's roadside signs advertising attractions in Scotland.
Okay.
You know, come to Edinburgh, home of the shortbread. You know, come to Glasgow, where Barrowland is lifting, and what is it? It's the 2014 Commonwealth Games.
It is.
And then you've got Auburn. It's closer than you think.
Oh, I see. Okay, so that's where it came from.
Yeah. Actually, it doesn't even have the it's. It's just Auburn, closer than you think.
Right. Do you remember I went up there last year and took the camera? And there was a seasidey bit in that little VT I did.
Yeah.
That's Auburn.
Closer than you think.
It wasn't.
Well, Inverrochy Cocky Leaky's only another 5 miles further.
It's a nice little seaside town, though, is Auburn.
It's brilliant for fishing as well.
Probably. We were clothes shopping, as I recall, because that's the way we roll. Anyway, we better do some current stuff. How did did your trip up there go? I know you're going to be covering this on your own shows during the week, but just give us a flavour. How did it go?
Well, if I may quote Martin Dockrell, which I think is probably a good source of quote on this one, the morning was fabulous, very positive. The afternoon went to shit. There was, his words, there was a process of winding uppage going on. However, I will say that Sarah Jakes reportedly, and it's not just from Martin and Hazel and one or two others, Rory, a few people have said she was fabulous. Asked pertinent questions.
I have to interject and say she has a habit of being like that.
She's damn good. And was asking questions that just shut them up. Like, for instance, when they were written on about medregs and these are a medicinal product, or that e-cigs shouldn't be allowed in public and all of this. She said, how come suddenly that changes if they've got a medical license, if a medicinal license? Why suddenly are they all right then? What makes the change? And it's kind of,
what a cracking question.
Yeah, absolutely. Apparently, Jared Hastings was being Jared Hastings, which is Martin McKee's mini-me. Doesn't like marketing of anything, frankly. Nothing should be advertised, ever. Nothing. It's just, no, because it could appeal to children. Doesn't matter what it's for. It could be for Disneyland. Could appeal to children. Nah. But the overall tenor of it is they're more worried about addiction than anything else. And as Paddy Costello said on Thursday night, they're 2 years behind the times.
It looks to me like what happens is that they throw out this old idea that we've all moved on from. Like you say, they're a couple of years behind the times. But as the sort of weight of opinion sort of starts to make their current argument seem a bit silly, then they switch on to the next one. So we watch we don't know what's in them, onto the gateway thing, onto the addiction thing now, and yeah, it's ridiculous. But sorry, go.
They're having a challenge finding things to hang their hat on that they can object to scientifically. As in, there isn't anything that they can hang their hat on scientifically. And it was just a tad unfortunate that there were some good orators there. And I'm here to tell you, I also heard from Sarah that Martin Dockrell was very good as well. And the good news is, of course, that he's moved to Public Health England and is the supremo in charge of tobacco control there and wants to see e-cigs everywhere. And
why wouldn't you? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you could debate at length how correct it is, the rights and wrongs of having a tobacco control leader of any kind. Yeah. But if your stated objective is to get rid of tobacco, then how can you sort of try and slaughter its most viable competitor?
Well, quite. And I mean, I've said this 1,000 times. It's all down to choice, isn't it? And
should be.
Yes, absolutely right. It should be. But it seems to me that every time anybody's given a choice to switch to e-cigs, if they get a good one, they choose so to do. And I think that is what drives certain of those that would oppose us, shall we say, because they kind of feel it should happen because they said so, not because people want to.
Indeed.
And that really worries me. The stamp of people that would want to impose their will on other people just because they want to. I'm sure some of them mean well, but at the end of the day, for goodness' sake.
You have to assume they mean well. But as you quite rightly point out, they then go on this sort of quest to find some reason that isn't obviously just ideological with which to justify what they're saying, don't they? And that takes us perhaps into a good place to look at our first story that we picked up this week. Now, if you're on Twitter, we say this a lot, don't we? If you're on Twitter, you may have noticed this going on. It starts with a piece that appeared in the North West Evening Mail last Thursday, I believe it was, the 3rd of April, while you were in Scotland.
Yes.
And if I put it up on the screen now, I can show you. And the headline is that a Cumbria landlord bans e-cigs from pub. And it's actually quite a descriptive headline, that, because a landlord of a pub in Cumbria has banned e-cigs from his pub. Now,
accurate headline. I like those.
I'll just give you a flavour of the actual newspaper piece, and I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this will be aware of this. The guy's name is Craig Sherrington, and he runs a pub called the General Burgoyne in Great Urswick. Urswick or Urswick? You can never be quite sure how you pronounce those, can you?
Depends on where you dragged up.
Exactly. And there's a quote from him. He said, "We're worried about it because there are unknown risks. We don't want to subject our staff and customers to something that's not been tested." It then goes on to say the ban comes as Wales debates whether to introduce a blanket ban on the use of e-cigs in enclosed public spaces. It then goes on to talk a bit about the Welsh Health Minister, but we're going to discuss that a little bit more later in the show. But I'll finish with the last quote from Craig Sherrington, the landlord. He said, "We just felt it was the right way to go. We don't want nicotine in the pub. People have been pretty understanding about it. They've just gone outside, which is fine." Now, my first thought when I read that was, it's his pub, he can do what he wants.
That's true. But
the more I thought about it, so why's he gone to the press with it?
Well, yes, I mean, that does make you think, doesn't it? Everybody has an opinion. Opinions are like bottoms. Everybody has one. Most of them stink, but yes, he's got an opinion. Why go and share it with the wider press? Why go and try to drum up publicity? Oh, wait. Cha-ching.
My God, Dave, I think you may have hit the nail on the head there.
Cha-ching. Money.
Yeah, look, so, cut a long story short, some tweeting happened. And I'm not actually sure who started it. It's like when I used to split the kids up from fighting. I don't care who started it. But basically, this guy started getting all sort of ideologically and moralistic and all the rest of it, and saying he'd done research, and people challenged him to do that research, to share that research. It turns out it got traced back to some glance story, which has been mostly discredited by anybody that knows anything about anything. So, I mean, my feeling on this, I haven't actually got a lot to contribute to the debate, I guess. You might have, which I'll give you a moment in a minute. But my personal take on this is that if you go to the papers to make statements like, "Oh, I'm worried about my staff," and all the rest of it, then you've got to take the flak. I didn't see anything abusive or anything, but like there was no real name calling or anything. Well, maybe a bit, but not a lot. But
nothing that wasn't accurate.
Well, precisely. You know, I mean, but it's all this, "Oh, yeah, I've done my research and nobody knows if they're safe." But, you know, the line in there, in that piece, you know, "We don't want nicotine in the pub." You know, I mean, Mr. Sherrington, it's your pub. You truly can do what the bloody hell you like in your pub. And I'll choose whether to drink in there or not if I happen to be passing your neck of the woods, based on what you decide. But if you go to the papers, you've got to be prepared to listen to people when they present you with some facts. That's all I've got to say on it. What about you, Dave? Anything to add?
Well, what concerns me more than anything is he's been promulgating this disinformation and misinformation here, there and hither and yon. He has quite an active Facebook page, it would appear, and one or two fanboys. And that's good. You know, that's great for him. It's great for his business. And, you know, from that respect, I do hope he's successful. However, having shared and promulgated this misinformation and disinformation, one of his clients stroke friends has now ceased using electronic cigarettes and has gone back to smoking 20 a day of the tobacco variety. And I sincerely hope, Mr. Sherrington, that your conscience is clear. Because if it is, then you are a greater ideologue than I am. It should not be clear. It should be far from clear. Because by spreading this disinformation and misinformation and lies, which is what you are spreading, then you are actually causing people physical harm. On that basis, young sir, I can assure you of one thing for absolute certain. My feet will never cross the threshold of your pub, nor shall the feet of anyone with whom I have chanced to converse before they go in your direction. I want you to know that. I don't like what you've done. End of.
Nicely put, I thought. That was rather good.
Balanced, I thought.
And you didn't swear? Make
No.
any references to his character whatsoever in there?
No. Ridian Mans just said, is it me or has DD lost his northern accent tonight? Tonight I'm on newsreader duty. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Dave's Tacklebox.
Yep, so as Dave said there, should point out when we say it was one of his friends, it's one of his Facebook friends. It seems to be. They certainly posted on his timeline that they had, as a direct result of the article he did, decided to stop using e-cigarettes and go back to smoking 20 a day. So, well done, Mr. Sherrington.
Yes, round of applause.
We touched briefly there on this Welsh Assembly thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't let that go, really. You were in Scotland. I was in Switzerland. Because that's the kind of international setup that we are. But I actually was alerted to this by a colleague at work who knows that I'm quite sort of active with all this e-cigs stuff. Although they don't vape themselves, they pointed it out and said, "Oh look, have you seen the BBC? They're going to ban them in Wales." And I thought, "Oh God, here we go." Mm-hmm. And it was appalling. I mean, but rather than concentrate on the guff that came from the Welsh Assembly itself, I thought, unusually, I'd use a piece from the Daily Mail to reflect my feelings on it. That doesn't happen very often, does it?
Actually, I would have thought it was a very rare occurrence. Can I just pick something up from chat quickly?
Of course.
Lorian, for it was she, mentioned that a certain person had threatened her with liable, not libel, because obviously he's very, very well educated, this particular person. And given that I'm not naming who the person is, I'm not being libelous either. It's Libel, by the way. And Lorian, you've got nothing to worry about, because what he's referring to wouldn't even fall under the law of libel. The sharing of information is not libelous. It's the man's a fool.
Yeah.
I've mentioned no names. We're good. But Wales. Yes, Wales.
Yes, well, I'll just add to that because it's a valid point, and I did see that go past on Twitter, and I thought, yeah, right. Okay, libel means that you published something that wasn't true, that was defamatory, and you didn't. Because we've got the screenshots of the evidence to show that it happened, and the guy's saying as a direct result of your news article. So, no, there's no libel there. Just a repeating of public domain information.
Absolutely right. Good. Yes, Wales.
Wales. Oh, Wales.
Sorry, I'm sorry for diving in there. I just wanted to put a couple of minds to rest there.
I just had a Blackadder moment then. Wales, oh, Wales. The country where you need half a pint of phlegm in your throat to pronounce the place names. I believe the line went.
Yes, and they have confiscated most of the vowels, apparently.
Yeah. Never ask for directions in Wales, Baldrick. You'll be washing the spit out of your hair for weeks. And that's not libel either, because Blackadder said it. Right, Wales. Yes, so we had this idea, and we've got a little news piece with really poor quality, haven't we, audio? And maybe this sets the scene, and you'll recognise a couple of the people in this, won't they?
I would imagine so, yes.
So I'll just get this set up, because I'm doing a sort of wing it streaming kind of thing. There it is. And I have to make it full screen.
While Dave's doing all this, can I advise viewers to please watch with your hiss filters in?
Yes.
This is the footage as it was sent by ITN. We are not to blame. We accept no liability.
Yes, it's this ITN,
Independent Television News.
It's actually ITV News, isn't it?
It is now.
They don't chuck video around the internet as much as us, it seems. As would have been better, wouldn't it?
It's rather incredible though that they have chucked it in our direction.
It was rather good of them. So
yes.
The quality's not the highest, but it's very short. I'll give the volume a little boost once it's rolling, and hopefully it'll be watchable. So here we go, try this.
Every year, more than 200 people are diagnosed with lung cancer here in Cardiff. Yet electronic cigarettes, an alternative to smoking, could be banned from enclosed public places.
We renormalised smoking. We've had a 30-year campaign in this country to persuade people that smoking is neither glamorous nor something to be proud of.
They come in a range of designs, using a battery to heat nicotine liquid into a vapour. Before he started on them, Matt smoked 35 tobacco cigs a day. I'm getting a real waft of that now in my face. You can understand some people objecting, can't you?
I can understand where people don't understand what it is, but what it is essentially just a water vapour.
The debate about an official e-cig ban is underway, but many places like this have already gone ahead and imposed their own. Weatherspoons don't allow them, and of 20 venues we called in Cardiff, only 4 do let customers use e-cigarettes. Matt believes that's squandering a chance to help people quit tobacco.
Here we have the View Cinema and the cinema chain and the Millennium Stadium. If electronic cigarettes were actually encouraged to be used, then more people would potentially take up using electronic cigarettes and maybe actually quit using tobacco cigarettes.
But some medical authorities, including the World Health Organization, say not enough is known about e-cigarettes, and this Cardiff restaurant owner has chosen to ban them.
We are a family-led restaurant here. We have children and non-smokers here, and we feel it's not fair to other people to see them smoking, and possibly encourage non-smokers, children or other non-smokers, to start smoking.
Some say they're a lifesaver, others that they're just another addictive nicotine device. What's certain is that the debate on e-cigarettes started in Wales today is long overdue. Chris Troy, ITV News, Cardiff.
And there you go. So apologies for the quality of the audio on that, but it was better to show it than not, I think. There's a couple of little things that we're going to talk about in there, and then we're going to go to the Daily Mail and see what they think of it. But first we'll take a break, and we'll get straight back to it right after this.
Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tacklebox. Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tacklebox.
And welcome back. Okay, so that little bit of video there, as I say, not the best audio quality, but it's all we had. That went out on Wednesday evening, apparently, yes. And was the ITN response to this guff that was coming out of the Welsh Assembly. Now, my first observations on that, ignoring the sound quality, were that it was actually quite balanced. We saw Matt there, Cybernoid, who we all know pretty well, putting the case really well.
And Pete Dermody.
And Pete Dermody, indeed. And we saw Matt get the last word, which is always good. I got the feeling from watching that piece that actually, you know, it was, I wouldn't say it was opposing the idea, but it wasn't giving it a huge amount of support, was it, the way that was edited?
Well, you're right. I mean, if Matt got the last word and he's not supporting it, then neither are they.
Yeah, that's pretty much the logic I was following. But so that was good. So, you know, the first bit of response to the idea of the ban was good. And then came the Daily Mail.
Daily Mail!
Right, you know, before I flash this piece up, and a lot of people will have seen this already, I'm sure, but we're going to run through it anyway. Before I flash this up, I mean, the Daily Mail have printed some absolute shite, haven't they, about e-cigs? You know, and what I'm starting to think is that actually their idea of balance, rather than posting, making sure that all of their pieces are balanced, their idea of balance is to post extreme views. First of all from one side, then the other. then the other, then the other. So they're almost arguing with themselves, and that's how they constitute their balance, I think. But let's pop it up on screen. The headline is one of the best Daily Mail headlines I've ever seen, frankly. It says, "Craziness of the e-cigarette health police. Nanny state Welsh Assembly considers banning public spaces." I mean, it's just brilliant, isn't it?
Just a bit.
It talks a bit about people relaxing with them in pubs and restaurants. It says, "Electronic cigarettes are suddenly everywhere, allowing smokers to ingest modest amounts of nicotine to keep their addiction at bay. People turn to e-cigarettes in the knowledge they are healthier than normal cigarettes, and sales have rocketed, trebling in 3 years." I mean, just that sentence itself, the way it's that stated, people turn to these e-cigarettes in the knowledge. The normal language is people believe they are healthier, but this is saying that they are doing it in the knowledge they are healthier than normal cigarettes. It's actually a really well put together piece. There is overwhelming evidence that they are infinitely less harmful than traditional cigarettes. It's not quite infinitely. Can't be infinite, can it? Can only be a maximum of 100%. But I'm going to forgive them that, surprisingly. Yet ministers in the Welsh Assembly believe no one should be allowed to puff on them in enclosed public spaces. And it just goes on. It talks about examining the merits of this extremely dubious justification. The justification that they say has been given because the devices normalise smoking and undermine the smoking ban. They dismiss that as an extremely dubious justification. It then goes on to talk about the history of them. Honlik was a 3-pack-a-day smoker. When his father, also a heavy smoker, died of cancer, he looked for an alternative to cigarettes which would not kill him. There are videos in here, including the Nigel Farage bit. I don't know who that guy is in that picture I've got on screen at the moment, but that picture's been around since before I started vaping.
What, the guy in the green shirt?
No, the guy, the close-up, with the baseball bat-like e-cig in his hand. You probably can't see that one yet. It's a file picture, is the way it refers to it here. I'm sure that's been around longer than me. Don't know who the guy in the green shirt is either, but he's making a real cigarette. Yeah. I'm not going to read it all out. I think I've captured the essence of it pretty well. Another little bit. Meanwhile, the Welsh Assembly's pious claim that the ban would improve public health appears grotesque in the light of the manifest failings of its health service, in which any number of needless deaths have been ignored or worse hushed up. It pulls absolutely no punches whatsoever, tells it like it is. It could have been a transcript of one of our discussions, Dave.
Indeed.
It's just...
it's lovely when you see positivity like that. The Welsh Assembly prefers to pursue hypothetical risks to health, such as people sucking blamelessly on nicotine-infused plastic tubes, rather than tackle what is right under their noses and which is their direct responsibility to put right. That man is getting a pint next time I see him.
I don't know whether he's a vapor.
Don't care whether he is or not, he's got it right.
He has. Shall we click his link? Let's click his link.
Go on then.
See what else he's written. Because I feel like I need to know more about this guy. Here we go. So he did that one. No, I can't see any more sort of e-ciggy type stuff recently anyway. I thought that would be a bit about him, but apparently not. It's just a fantastic piece, isn't it?
I think so, yes. Yes, it tells it like the Welsh Assembly ought to know it. And I suspect do know it. To be honest, I think this is yet another ideological attack, and one which can't be justified by science, and one which I am pleased to be able to report I am seeing 80% opposition to in the general public, and that was before it was tweeted, frankly. The general public are not climbing on board with this one, and neither should they.
I think that's it, isn't it? You know, I mean, as good as that piece is, it kind of reflects the general sort of reaction to this idea, doesn't it? Like you say, there've been polls, and like the public are 80% against the idea of banning public spaces. And you know, I mean, there's a thread started on UK vapors by a guy called Taffy, who may be Welsh.
With a name like Taffy, nah, he's a Geordie, got to be.
Yeah, it could be. And you know, he very, I think, very reasonably asked the question, why isn't everybody up in arms about this Welsh ban idea? And I thought it was a fair point. And you know, let's just be clear about this. If that goes through, then everywhere else follows. Yeah, that's the way these buggers work. You know, the only thing that's stopping governments from banning these at the moment, because we know that ideologically and perhaps for reasons of pressure from lobbyists, they'd rather people smoke than use e-cigs. That's the way the governments seem to be positioned at the moment. The only reason they're not talking about doing this in England and in Scotland and everywhere else is because they don't think they get away with it. If somebody like Wales goes and does it, then that's the justification. Look at the smoking ban.
Yes. That
started with the Irish, and then straight away the UK government is saying they've done it in Ireland, we're doing it here.
Well, the Welsh, it's a toss-up between the Welsh and the Irish as to who was first, to be honest. My understanding is that it was mooted in Ireland, and then Wales went and did it. Then the UK followed.
You may be right. You may be right, Dave. But
to be honest, I can't honestly remember because it just...
It was a while ago. It was a while ago, but the principle is there, isn't it? And we've seen it in Europe as well. You know, one government does it, and the other government seems to think, right, that gives us license to do it, and they'd love to deal with this problem by stamping it out, wouldn't they?
Oh God, yes.
So I mean, all the reasons it's wrong are clear. I mean, we were talking earlier about the guy in Cumbria with his pub. There was a guy in there running a restaurant there. You know, that's their decision what they want to allow or not allow in their own premises. But if you've got a business who wants to encourage people to vape or just simply tolerate people vaping, that should be their decision. A ban is wrong. You know, look what the smoking ban did for pubs.
Well, nothing. They're closing at the rate of around about 52 a week.
Correct.
There'll be none left.
When you see the statistics about how fast they're closing, you know, it's a miracle there are any left. Because that's been going on for some time. But
it annoyed me from day one, and for the life of me, I can't understand why Blair didn't understand what was going on when his own working men's club that he used to do all of his elections and what have you broadcasts from, when it closed because the smokers weren't going, you'd have thought he'd have seen the signs on the wall.
Absolutely. And then there's the other argument that says, you know, if you were going to stop people sort of vaping in a bar, for example, and they have to go out to the smokers area, the shed outside or whatever, to vape, then why wouldn't they just smoke? And actually that leads quite nicely into another little piece that appeared in the Telegraph. And this is a blog by a guy called Tim Stanley that appeared in the Telegraph last week. This was Wednesday, April the 2nd, and I'll pop this up. You know, and Tim Stanley is a historian of the United States, it says. His new book about Hollywood politics is out in May. And he's got a personal website called timothystanley.co.uk if you want to check him out. And he's on Twitter at Timothy_Stanley. And the title of his blog here is, "If you ban my e-cig, I'm buying a deck of Marlboro Lights." And I think he's really sort of on the ball with this. I'll just read the first couple of paragraphs. It says, a new front has opened up in the war against smokers, people who don't really smoke at all. Wales is considering prescribing the use of e-cigarettes in public places on the grounds that they undermine the smoking ban and might even normalise smoking. Plans to outlaw politicians on the grounds that they normalise big government, however, are not on the table. I'm a late convert to e-cigarettes. I wouldn't class myself as an habitual smoker, but a couple of puffs on something sweet has always been part of my creative process. It helps concentrate the mind, I find, when trying to come up with erudite ways of calling public health officials a pain in the neck. Worried that suffering for my art might translate into lung cancer, however, I decided to experiment with the electric alternative and found that they take some getting used to. Ugly and clunky, they light up at the end like E.T.'s finger and fail to deliver that acidic hit that makes the real thing such a delight. On the plus side, however, they don't leave you smelling like a rubbish tip or lying in an early grave, so I've persevered. And this is really worth a read, this is, and I'll pop the link into chat for later. If you've not read this, do. It's a witty, well-written blog. I won't read it all out because it goes on for a while. I'll just read the closing paragraph though, because that's good. It says, if the health freaks of Wales are determined to discourage e-cigarette use, particularly among the young, I have a solution. Redesign them so that they blow a noise like a kazoo. Insert something in the sucking end that makes a loud whiz sound, so that every time you take a puff you look like a clown. That way, the more hardcore users won't want to appear in public. They can meet in each other's houses and play Colonel Bogey as they slowly get high on the liquid nicotine. So it's essentially it's a very sort of witty piece, a very, very well written piece, I thought. But I tell you what, he really hits the nail on the head in a few places in that article, doesn't he?
Just a bit.
So. Okay, I mean, Dave, you didn't say much on that, on the Welsh ban. I mean, who's driving it, really, do you think?
World Health Organization.
You think it is simply down to the WHO line?
The fact of the matter is, even though the UK is signed up as the UK, I often liken this to a candle. And, you know, a candle with the little graduations up the side. And various different people have different positions on this candle, and one or two are the flame. The World Health Organization is seen as being the flame, and people at various different levels on the candle are the folks that feed it. And, of course, if the World Health Organization, as we discussed a week or two ago, has decided that e-cigs are the very spawn of the devil and should be cast out like the monster within, then there are people out there who have an uncritical mind and therefore don't actually look at the science themselves. They wait to see what the prognostications are from the flame on the candle, and then wait to see whether those who are higher up the candle reiterate those prognostications, ergo the likes of Mr. McKee and Mr. Hastings and Mr. Glantz, who are all right up towards the top of the candle. They repeat these prognostications and in some cases feed them into the flame so that they can be promulgated wider. And then you've got people like Mark Drakeford, who is probably an ex-smoker and was probably harangued by his wife because of his smoking, if indeed he has one. And therefore has taken this stance that he is the true disciple of Glantz, and therefore e-cigarettes are the spawn of Satan and should be cast out like the devil within. And very little will sway his thinking. However, it's not just him. There is a full Welsh Assembly which must decide upon this, and out of that, if the public's anything to go by, 80% will not agree with his particular prognostications. I sincerely hope not, at any rate. Of course, there is a consultation on this, and everybody can partake.
There is indeed, and do you know what? I've lost the link.
Oh no.
Sorry, people pinging me messages. I'll just ignore that. I did have a link to that consultation. I will dig it out during the next break. But yes, just just to pick up on a point you made there, Drakeford obviously is the Welsh Assembly Health Minister, but these guys don't go out on a limb, right? They talk in committees and things and get all their buddies on board first, don't they, and make sure it's okay to say it before they come out. So, you know, you can't just dismiss this, you know. It's been announced because it has some support. So the reaction that we're seeing, including in, of all places, the Daily Mail, is fantastic to see. You know, because, you know, that's the way these guys work, isn't it? They float the idea and then they look at the reaction, don't they? See who's opposed to it. As Dave says, there is a consultation. We're going to take a break now and I'll dig out that link. And we'll make sure you know where you can actually take part in that. There are contact addresses, so whether they officially want your input or not, you can give them some. Yes. But I'll dig it out and we'll have a look at that. So
just before we dive into the adverts, Dave,
yeah, sure.
I have been pinged a message as well on Skype from Nathan, who says, sorry to message you while you're on air, but I have a radio interview with PHW next week. They don't know I'm a vapor yet, and it's Dr. Julie Bishop who'll be doing the interview. If chat has any good questions they'd like an answer to, feel free to ask, and I'll try my best to ask them before I get hung up on.
Fair enough.
I should probably have done that in a Welsh accent, isn't it, haven't I, wasn't it? Couldn't it, Megan Braunwain?
Okay, right. Let's get into the break, and when we come back, hopefully I'll have that link. I'll try. See you in a minute.
Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tacklebox.
iVapor and iVapor Elixir, based in Yorkshire, for your e-cig needs. That's ivapor.co.uk and ivapor-elixir.co.uk. iVapor and ivapor-elixir.co.uk, proud sponsors of vaportrails.tv.
Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tacklebox.
In the room. I put you up instead of both of us then.
Oh, well.
But they'll never notice. Apart from I just said it out loud.
Scared the children.
I have found the link for this white paper. Thanks to everybody that sent me the link simultaneously there. Thank you, team. Here we go. This is it. It's at wales.gov.uk/consultations/health social care /white paper. And we'll put that link into chat as well. I'll do that now. That's done. And we'll get that in the text that surrounds the embedded video later. Okay, so this obviously is Welsh Government. It's a white paper. The opening paragraph is, they're calling it the Public Health White Paper. The Listening to You, Your Health Matters White Paper sets out a series of proposals for legislation to help further improve and protect people's health and well-being in Wales. Now, this includes the idea of banning the use of e-cigs in public places. Then they give you an address and an email address where you can contact them and let them know what you think.
There's even a consultation response form.
There is indeed a Word document. Shall we open it up? Let's open it up and see what that looks like.
While you're opening that up, I do know that Wales is a country of 2 languages, but please, Welsh Assembly, do when you're writing in English, get it right. If you would like register an early interest in attending, it says here. It's if you would like to register, not if you would like register an early interest in attending, isn't it? That night, wasn't it? Couldn't it? But on when, Megan, look you.
Right, here we go. There's this is the first time I'm looking at this. They say they want your views on our proposals in the Public Health White Paper. Your views are important. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, looks like Chapter 2 is the interesting one for us. It's talking about Tobacco Retailers Register, electronic cigarettes. Question 6 to question 11. Let's see what they want to know. Question 6. Do you consider that the use of e-cigarettes in enclosed and substantially enclosed public places, including workplaces, undermines and makes more difficult the enforcement of the current ban on smoking in such places?
No.
I visited Wales once, so I assume they want my opinion too.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't do it electronically. You're going to have to print it out and tick it. Question 7. Do you consider that the widespread use of e-cigarettes in enclosed and substantially enclosed public places, including workplaces, normalises the act of smoking and acts as a gateway to the use of conventional tobacco products?
No.
Question 8. Do you have any evidence or practical experiences to support your views in relation to questions 6 and 7? My answer to that would be, have you?
My answer to that would be, given that it's a printed out form, to enclose the 3 reams of evidence that we already have, and just say, yeah, read that lot.
It's just that is just a ridiculous question. It's supposed to be a public consultation, and they're asking us if we've got any evidence they can borrow. Jesus. Right, hang on. Okay. If so, we'd be grateful to receive such evidence or receive details of such experiences. Just put our address down.
I'm pleased they'd be grateful, because I suspect they're going to get a lot.
Question 9. Do you consider legislation would assist in the enforcement of the existing smoke-free requirements and reinforce the message that smoking is no longer the norm? Please provide evidence to support your answer if available. It's going to be very hard to fill this in without going, of course not, you dickhead, isn't it, in the little box provided?
Yes. Well, you can please, well, it does say please provide comments.
I've got a number of comments. I just don't think they've left enough space. I suppose if you write very small. Question 10. In considering such a proposal, should the ban on the use of e-cigarettes in enclosed and substantially enclosed public and workplaces be subject to the same exemptions and penalties as conventional tobacco products? That's a loaded one, isn't it?
It is loaded, yes.
Because that assumes that you support it. So I'd add a box personally there and go irrelevant.
Yes, and then put the comments below. This is a loaded question that presupposes that the ban is coming in. It ought not to, and therefore the question is completely irrelevant.
What other measures, if any, should the Welsh Government be considering in relation to e-cigarettes?
You should be promoting them widely. You should be making them available everywhere tobacco cigarettes are made available, and you should not be opposing their use under any circumstances, under any pretext, or under any other reason.
Or if you don't want to type all that, just say, yeah, keep your beaks out.
Well, that was what I just said.
And question 12 doesn't even seem to be related to e-cigarettes. It says, do you consider that voluntary smoking bans in hospital grounds, school grounds and children's playgrounds are sufficient? Or are these areas where Welsh ministers consider legislating? So I'd probably point out there that electronic cigarettes have nothing to do with smoking, probably.
I would also point out that since there is considerable evidence that there is no ill health effect from second-hand smoke, it's a ridiculous thing to do anyway. But that might just brand me as a nutter.
Yeah, and then just reading through now, question 13 is under a new subheading called Internet Sales of Tobacco. And it doesn't implicitly state it here, But when it asks, do you consider there is a problem with persons under 18 receiving delivery of tobacco products which have been ordered online by an adult? Please provide evidence to support your response. You know that when they type up the results of this report, that will include e-cigs. Under the term tobacco products. Thanks, Linda, for giving them that one. And question 14 doesn't have a heading, look.
Doesn't it?
Apparently
Neither
not.
It does.
It's an orphaned question. Is this an
no.
area where the National Assembly for Wales should consider strengthening the existing legislative framework to make it an offence to deliver products to a person that is under the legal age of tobacco products, which is currently 18? No. And that's it.
They obviously haven't thought through the ramifications of such a thing. What happens, for instance, if your 16-year-old daughter happens to be the only one in the house when UPS arrives with something that Daddy has ordered? Would they say the same about condoms, for instance? I doubt that, somehow. Would they say the same if it was Daddy's order of 12 bottles of wine from whatever it is, the company that does the 12 bottles of wine or the 24 bottles of beer? Or alternatively, the do-it-yourself circumcision kit?
Thing is, right, you've got to have a credit card pretty much to be able to order stuff off the internet. So you've pretty much got to be 18, yeah?
Yes.
As a general rule, okay?
Yes.
Put another way, I'm sure there are ways around that, but put another way, there are a number of products that are only available for people aged over 18, and the authorities are happy with the measures taken by vendors to ensure people are 18. I believe there's actually a gauge, isn't it, if you've taken reasonable means. They don't think that many people slip through the net, okay? So that's fine. So you've got a scenario where you're at work, your teenage child answers the door and signs for the package or whatever. That's what they're on about. Now, if your child nicks that off you, you're going to go asking, aren't you?
Yes, where is my order of kitchen knives that Rydian Man has ordered on behalf of your mother?
Exactly. And if... yes, that'll do nicely. If the scenario is that the product was actually for your under 18 child, okay, so the idea was that you would sign for it and then give it to them, what difference does it make if you sign for it anyway? This, ladies and gentlemen, is a prime example of politicians pissing your tax money up the wall. What is the point of that? Am I missing something?
No, you're not missing anything at all. Cerulean C. Lorian's just said lots of banks do credit cards for 11 plus. They don't. They do debit cards for 11 plus.
That was my understanding, actually. You have to, because credit is involved, loaning, you have to be 18 to get credit. You get debit cards. But she may have a good point there. You'll probably be able to use those online.
She's corrected it before they'll see what we've just said. She meant debit. Yeah. I never understand the difference between the two, to be honest. It's a bloody card.
Debit card, they take the money straight out your bank there and then. So if you try and spend 100 quid on a debit card, these days the machine that you're swiping it through or keying the number into checks that you've got the funds in your bank, and if you ain't got 100 quid in your bank, it says no.
The thing about it is, though, the debit cards for under 18s are called things like Electron, and they have other names, and you can't use them. And there's also in the coding on the number, it's coded that you're under 18. All of that's available.
No idea, to be honest. What I do know, though, is that the onus is on the vendor not to sell to an under 18.
Yes.
This question here is about what happens if an under 18 receives the parcel, and it's a stupid question.
It is, and Rydian Man has just reminded me it's called solo.
Right.
Because you're so low under 18, you see. Could be wrong.
Right. Yes.
Oh,
so
hang on. I'm just getting wrong off entropy. I've denormalised being wrong and made Lorian cry.
Watch it, Lorena. We'll see you for label. I'm going to start a ladle suit.
A label suit.
A ladle suit.
Yeah.
Right, so just to remind everybody, that's wales.gov.uk/consultations/health social care /white paper. And there's the full consultation document. We'll have a quick look at that. There you go. This tells you about what they're thinking of doing and how the process works. Look. So page 11, apparently. So, get off. That doesn't work, does it? Dun, dun, dun. Scroll down to page 11. Easier said than done.
Produced a PDF with clickable links. Honestly.
I know. Done by the government, wasn't it? So, somewhere in amongst this guff is their proposal to ban stuff. I guess. We haven't got time to go through that tonight, but it'll be in there somewhere. The important bit is that you can read about it. There's a fact sheet. Yeah, I bet there's a lot of facts on that.
Oh, aye.
Let's have a look. Why do we need legislation? You don't. So there's a fact for a start. That they, so there's plenty of information there to explain what they were thinking of doing. And, you know, we've sat here and ripped it out of them a bit. You couldn't see any of that I was clicking, could you? There we go, I'll just show you again. We're sitting here having a pop at them for coming up with such a stupid idea on the news the other day. You are being consulted. You do have your chance to say. I'm not sure what the scope of this is. I'm sure if I read it properly, I would find out, but I don't know whether you have to be a Welsh resident or what the criteria are. I'm going to fill it in anyway. It'll only take me a minute. I'm going to send it to them, and if they ignore it, fair enough. But at least I know how I feel. I was going to talk about plain packs, but we've kind of run out of time, Dave.
Well, let's just sum it up very quickly. Bloody stupid idea, won't work. Australia proves it. What the hell are they banging on about?
Exactly. And added to the fact that here's a guy, right, just got time to mention this, right? Simon Clark, his blog, takingliberties.squarespace.com. Simon Clark is a spokesperson for Forest, the smokers' rights group. He doesn't like being called a lobbyist, and he isn't one actually. But he's a very well-spoken guy. I know that he's had a swipe at e-cig users a few times, but I have to say I've got some sympathy with what he said about some e-cig users in the past who are very anti-smoking. But he's wrote that blog this week talking about plain packaging, and Jane Ellison's sort of statement that the government are going to bring it in, but they want another consultation first, which is a strange way to announce something, isn't it?
Just a bit.
I could understand we're not ready to make a decision, we need a further consultation. That's fair. I could understand we're going to do it. I wouldn't agree with them, but I could understand that, that's fair enough. But what they actually did, and Simon talks about this, they were prepared as an organisation for 3 possible statements, and they didn't really, it was the least likely one that came up. They said they're going to do it, but they're having another consultation first, which seems odd. But the telling thing from the piece he wrote during the week, he actually wrote this on Friday, was that he was waiting for an announcement to be made by the government, and they kept telling him different things, like it'll be tomorrow, it'll be Thursday, it'll be this day, that day. And it looks as though they were arguing about what they were going to say right up until the 11th hour. So it looks like the government are a little bit all over the place on this, and that's why the announcement was the way it was. They say, yeah, we think it's a good idea, but we're having another consultation first. But that's a subject that I'm going to come back to next week, I think, this whole plain packaging thing. Because as you very rightly summarised there, Dave, it don't work, does it?
Nah.
There's no evidence to suggest it works. And we've got politicians bouncing around saying Australia proves it works. But Australia's proving it doesn't work. So, it's silly. It's silly. Anyway, we've about reached the end.
We have.
So unless you've got anything to add, you got
2
anything?
and 2 makes 4.
So, yes. Okay.
I'll just say this.
Oh, go on then.
Referencing back to the kind of the first piece. It was demonstrable yesterday when 60-odd people turned up to the knees meet, and the pub churned probably between 1,500 and 2 grand into their tills by the mere fact that we were all there. Nobody complained. A number of people asked, where the hell do you get them from? That's fabulous. A party of Geordie lads were going, Billy, come and have a look at this. It's amazing. Bloody hell, man. You need to get one of them instead of smoking. End of.
I think that's a good place to leave it. And maybe there's a lesson there for a certain Mr. Sherrington of wherever the hell it was.
Cumbria,
yeah.
where sausages eat themselves. It's closer than you think, though.
Right,
But obviously not as close as
it's closer than Oban. I'll tell you. Right, I'm wrapping this up because it's time. Can I just say, Dave, thank you very much for joining me again. It's been good fun again.
No problem. Yeah.
And when they start listening to you and me, mate, the world will be a better place.
Oh, God, yes.
And I'd like to also say thanks to everybody else out there for watching. We'll be back, same time, same place, next week. Thanks for watching, and good night.
Good night.
Cloud9 Vaping. Sponsors